Let's see if this car is a gangster car or not. I'm gonna give you a few buying advices.
Sometimes you cannot see the lights.
Let's see how fast it will reach from 0 to 60. Hello and welcome to Action on Cars. In today's video we have an Audi A5 and I'm gonna tell you all about it. We're gonna talk about its design, unique features and driving and handling characteristics. We're gonna take it out on the road and measure 0 to 60 acceleration, driving and handling characteristics, noise level in the cabin, etc. And we're also gonna talk to the owner. We're gonna talk about its reliability and common issues. So by the end of the episode, you should have a clear understanding of whether this car is a buy or no buy. So make sure you watch till the end, like, share, and subscribe to the channel. The car's 2016 production year, which is the first generation Audi A5. So the body index for this car is called B8, if you know Volkswagen Group body indexing. And it was manufactured from 2007 through 2016. In 2011, the facelifts came out, and this is actually the facelift version, and it looks much, in my mind, looks much better than the pre-facelift. The second generation A5 came out in 2017. And is still current to date. They came out in 3 different body styles. They could be a convertible, soft top, hardtop, 2-door coupe, or 4-door coupe, or sportback as Audi calls them. It's a 4-wheel drive version. What's more, not just a regular 4-wheel drive, it's renowned Quattro system from Audi, which in my mind is one of the best in-class 4-wheel drive systems out there. They are both sporty, they're great for going around the corners at higher speeds, and they are great on the snow. There were multiple variations of the transmission. You could get them with DCT or dual clutch transmission, 7-speed automatic, although I don't know if they were available in the US, and 8-speed automatic. This particular car is an 8-speed automatic. All right, so price-wise, you can get this cars for somewhere between 15 to 30,000 US dollars. I know it's a very wide range, and that depends on the condition, mileage, etc. But realistically, you can get one of these cars in a very good shape and with low miles, around like 40,000 miles, for about 20,000 US dollars. They probably will not be certified pre-owned, or they will not have any extended warranty, but you can still get them in a nice shape for around that price, which makes them even more attractive to people looking for fun cars. Let's talk about the design for a second. I think Audi makes one of the most beautiful and graceful sedans and coupes out there. Design is subjective, but I think that the elegant lines and streamlined lines of the car makes the car look very attractive. And the designers tried really hard to make it also look a little small. It's not a small car if you think about it. It has more than 3,500 pounds of weight, and it is 182 inches long, I believe, and about 73 inches wide. So it is a large car, relatively large car, but because of the design and the shape and the lines, it looks smaller than it is. And it actually feels smaller than it is when you drive it. It stays really flat when going around the corners. I really like the fact that it is subtly aggressive. It doesn't have too much of body kits, fender lines, etc. Even in the sporty versions of this car in S5, it's still the case. So this car is what we call a sleeper car. If the sleeper car is what you're looking for, then this car is a good option for you. Also, despite being a coupe, the car is very practical. I was surprised to find out that the rear seats are foldable. They are 40-60 split. You can fold them, so if you have a snowboard or skis, etc., you could pass them through, which makes it great. Trunk is not that big, but it's pretty practical. I believe the capacity of it is 12.2 cubic feet, or about 345 liters. Let's see if this car is a gangster car or not, meaning if you can put a human body in the trunk or not. Let's check it out.
Alright, let's see if I can fit in here.
I think we just proved that Audi A5 is a gangster car and you can fit a body in there. Okay, so speaking of the design, I also like the frameless windows because it's coupe. I think there is something special about frameless doors. Guys, you know, when the windows are all the way down, like just being able to grab the door like this and just close it, there's something special about it. The only recommendation I have for future owners is that don't grab by the glass if the glass is all the way up, because you might damage the glass. Otherwise, the doors are really wide and they're massive, they feel heavy. So that's kind of like underlines that this car is a coupe. Let's talk about who this car is for. I think the majority of the buyers are, you know, people between 25 to 45 years old people. It's for the people who don't want to spend their youth in boring cars like Toyota Camrys. No offense, Camry owners, but you know, this is for the people who, you know, want something luxurious and something more comfortable. Let's be honest, like parking an Audi A5 in your driveway looks and feels much better than, I don't know, driving a more generic Honda, for example. So people looking for a mere transportation to get from the point A to point B, they probably buy a Toyota or Honda because they're the most reliable cars, they're cheap to maintain, etc. And another cool fact about Audi is that girls like Audis. Let's be honest, gents, when we buy a car, we always visualize ourselves behind the wheel, pulling up by a girl at a stoplight, and we visualize how we look, whether we will be like looking appealing to them. You know, for example, if you were in tinted black AMG, you may appear as a, I don't know, kind of like a dangerous type of guy. That's not the case with Audis. Audis actually attract girls. When they see you behind the wheel, they think that you must be this hardworking, successful gentleman who probably works as a manager somewhere. All right, let's talk about technical characteristics and common issues and reliability and all that nice stuff. So the car is equipped with 2-liter turbocharged TFSI engine. This was one of the most advanced, technologically advanced 4-cylinder engines when it came out in 2007. They might have like actually made the engine even earlier than that, I'm not sure. And this engine won International Engine of the Year among small engines, I think for 4 subsequent years, 2005, 6, 7, and 8. I still consider this engine as one of the most reliable 4-cylinder engines out there. They're very smooth in terms of power delivery. It generates 220 horsepower and 258 pound-feet of torque. It can be chip-tuned easily. By a simple chip tune, you can increase the boost and increase the horsepower significantly. Earlier versions of this car, they had timing chain issues, etc. The transmission would not handle increased power from a chip tuning. That's why a lot of people got scared and they stopped chip tuning these engines. But in later models like this car, they've fixed all the early issues and you can safely chip tune the car and the transmission will handle it really well. And one more thing I want to say about technological advancement, if you could please come over here and show this side over here. You know, normally you would see an exhaust manifold over here, so there is no exhaust manifold. It's because this engine is what we call a hot head, meaning the exhaust manifold is inside the head, and instead of having 4 kind of like pipes or manifolds coming out of the engine, you only see 2. The other 2 go through the engine. So why does Audi makes it, and what is the reason and what the benefit of it? It's the following. So when the exhaust gases go through the head, ensures that the engine warms up fast. In the wintertime, that's good. That's what you want to have. I had an early version of this engine in my Volkswagen, and that engine would take forever to warm up, to come up to the normal operating temperature. I had 8 miles of commute one way, and it would only like reach the operating temperature by the end of my commute. And I would be freezing in the car because no hot air would come out of the vents. So they fixed that issue by installing a hot head in this engine in later versions. There's also a water jacket inside the head, which means that the exhaust gases are colder on the exit. So that also means that colder air coming out of the exhaust is better for your catalytic converters, for your turbos, etc. That was a neat advanced feature in this engine. So in terms of MPG, manufactured claimed numbers are about 30 on the highway, 22 or something at 20 in the city. Combined, you should get about 25. But because Audi belongs to Volkswagen Group, we're gonna check that in real life. We're not gonna take their word, if you know what I mean. And the engine is very smooth and it's quiet. Comparing to newer 4-cylinder Mercedes engines, which I talked about in my review of the GLB 2020. If you haven't seen that video, I'm gonna drop a link in the description so you can watch that later. New Mercedes engines are very noisy. They sound like a diesel engine from 90s. In general, Audi, Volkswagen makes a very quiet engines, and I like that. Transmission is 8-speed automatic. Like I said, in the later versions, they've improved it, they've increased its potential, and they've made them more sturdy, and they can handle the torque, even increased torque from tuned engines just fine. So just like with any car, this car is not perfect either. All the cars have their like weak points. So I'm gonna give you a few tips or buying advices or things to look out for when you're buying this car. Jumping ahead, I wanna say that this car is a very solid car, and you should not have any like catastrophic failures or anything like that, especially if you buy later production years. But there are still few things to look out for when buying them. So keyless entry feature may have some hiccups on some cars, so make sure that keyless entry works. Window regulators, electronics, they're usually solid, they should not fail, but it's something to check out for. Because it's a coupe, windows go down, so they kind of like slide down each time you open the door, or they slide up when you close the door. That's pretty like, it's a standard feature on all coupes. So because of that, it puts additional burden on the window regulators, so definitely make sure you check them. Pre-facelift models, they had some steering issues that was resolved in the facelift versions. But again, make sure that there is no clunking, there's no thumping when going over the bumps, and the car steers nicely. Arguably, Audi engines are kind of like infamous for burning oil. That was especially the case in pre-faced models. You would have to add like a liter or like quart of oil every 1,000 miles. That was because of the bad piston rings on Audi engines, which they revised in 2012. And facelift versions don't suffer from that issue. And this particular car does not burn any oil according to the owner. If there is a way to check for it, keep that in mind. Another common issue with direct injection cars is the carbon buildup. So that's not like Audi specific, that's the case for all direct injection cars, and this one is no exclusion. Definitely make sure that the engine runs smooth, there is no check engine, it doesn't misfire, it doesn't feel like it's misfiring. Another thing that was more common on the pre-facelift than in the facelift, and that was a timing chain rattle. So make sure you listen to the engine, and if you can, start the engine, start the car when it's cold. Listen to the engine, there should be no chain sound, there should be no rattling at all. That happened when people did not change their oil frequently, and the timing chain tensioners in the pre-facelift cars, they would wear out and the chain would be loose, and that's not good. That may eventually lead to catastrophic failures, and it's not like mileage dependent, really. It was only dependent on how frequently the previous owner changed the oil, and I guess like the luck. So make sure that the owners, if you buy a used one, that the oil was changed regularly, every 8,000 miles, no more than that. But later models like this one are just fine, should be fine. Mostly, there shouldn't be any rattles. Transmission, I recommend that the transmission gets serviced every 40,000 miles. So that's something to look for in the maintenance history. Later models are more reliable than early versions. That rule applies to all German cars. And just like with any other cars, check like for the suspension, engine mounts, etc. Regular checkup when you buy a car. Those are the issues to look out for. I hope it was informative. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. All right, Elena, thank you so much for providing your car today for test drive, and I would like to ask you a few questions about the car if you don't mind. The first question is, why did you decide to buy an Audi?
Well, a few reasons actually. We already had a car. We had RAV4 for a few years, and it's a very practical, nice car. However, when the time came to get the second one, I figured I want something more fun to drive, and that definitely brings you to another, I guess, class of cars that you look into, which is BMW, Audi, and things like that. And I had quite a few friends who owned Audis, and every single one of them raved about the quality of the car, that it's reliable and pretty easy to service as well. So that kind of was a starting place before me getting this one.
Did you consider any other cars, any other brands, or maybe any other models of Audi itself before choosing A5?
Yes and yes. I did look at the A6 as well. This car seemed to be more fun to me. Again, I know that maybe it's not the most logical criteria for choosing a car, but For the second car, it did make sense to me. Also, this one specifically was in really good condition. It had really low mileage on it, and it was pre-owned, so I got really good deal as well.
Okay, so you said that it's easy to service. Can you elaborate more on that? What exactly do you mean?
Well, Audi in general, they have pretty good program, at least in the US. They do send you reminders, they give you calls anytime you're due for maintenance. They have pretty good pre-owned car service. So that's something that I opted for when I got this one.
Yeah.
So the service is free. You bring it twice a year. They check everything. They change your oil, clean it up, fix it up, tell you if anything is wrong. Thankfully, I never heard that something is wrong so far, which is obviously good news. But then there are quite a few dealerships in general. So even if you move to another state, it's pretty easy to find the service center.
All right, so you said that you had Toyotas in the past and you still have a Toyota, which is the RAV4. We're gonna do a review of that car in the future as well, so make sure you subscribe. What is, I guess, 3-4 the things that you like the most about this car, and what is that you wish was a little different?
Okay, sure. Well, the first one is just the way you feel yourself in the car. You get in, the salon is nice, the car picks up speed very nicely as well. So once you find a nice empty road, it's a fun drive for sure. Audio system is amazing, speakers are amazing, so...
Yeah, this particular car is equipped with premium Bang & Olufsen system, which I don't know what the price was back then, but nowadays it's like a couple $1,000 extra when buying a new car. So having that premium sound system definitely is a nice option to have. What is that you wish was different? What is but be unbiased with the viewers, be honest. What is that you wish was different? For example, for me, we'll talk about it in a bit. I find this car to be a little stiff over the bumps. So things like that you wish was different.
I'm pretty tall, so it's something I haven't thought about when buying a car, but the roof is pretty low. So when you get to the intersection, sometimes you cannot see the lights. So you kind of have to look up and wait for the light to change, which is a bit of an inconvenience for sure.
And is that it? Nothing else?
Well, I guess gas in general, right? You have to use premium gas for this one. So if you do choose a car for longer commute, for example, this might not be the best choice.
Speaking of gas, what is the average MPG?
I wasn't really paying attention, to be honest, but based on what I remember, it's about 22, 23 in the city and maybe about 27 on the highway.
Combined would be around 24, 25 in the best case scenario. That's very actually close to what the manufacturer claims in terms of MPG. And it also depends on your driving style, obviously, the traffic, etc. Elena probably drives a little spiritually. All right, now let's talk about the ownership experience. So I think you've had this car for almost about 2 years, is that right?
Yeah, probably 1.5 years at this point, a little bit more.
Okay, any issues during your ownership, any recalls, anything that failed and you had to take it in for repairs, any issues?
The only issue, I guess, was the recalls that they had, but it was pretty smooth. It didn't really affect the way the car drives. So without me getting a letter from the dealership, I wouldn't even know that something's wrong. So that's kind of a good thing. But yeah, once I got that letter, it was pretty easy.
How do you drive this car? Is it your daily driver or is it your fun getaway weekend kind of car?
Well, both, but I actually don't have to commute to work. I work from home, so daily commute is really not applicable for me. I do use it pretty much every other day, just running errands. I took it on a few very long drives, interstates, so that was fun. But as I mentioned earlier, the mileage isn't that high. I didn't really care that much about mileage or the fact that the gas that you need to put in this car is premium. It wouldn't impact as much my wallet as it maybe would someone who drives it every day to work.
How does it compare to your RAV4?
RAV4 is, well, it's good on gas mileage, for sure. Also, you use the cheapest gas for RAV4, so it's kind of on top of that.
So RAV4 is better on gas than this?
Absolutely.
Interesting.
It is.
Who do you think this car is for?
It depends. If you're talking only about reliability factor, it's reliable enough to use every day and drive for many hours, absolutely. But if you're also trying to manage your budget better, I would definitely not say that this should be your #1 priority if you're buying your commute car. That's not that, in my mind at least.
So would you recommend this car to someone looking for a little, I guess, like more fun, more luxurious car. Would you recommend it to potential buyers?
Absolutely, I would. I actually love just going for drives sometimes. If you're in a bad mood, it's just fun to kind of pick up, jump in the car, turn on some music, and go for a drive.
Yeah, when I got in the car, I noticed you had some EDM playing through the speakers. So I can imagine how, after a long, exhaustive day, one could jump in the car, turn the music through amazingly sounding stereo system, and just drive around and relax a little. All right, thank you so much for answering my questions. And now we'll review the car in more details, and we're gonna take it out on the road and talk about driving and handling characteristics. All right, guys, let's go for a ride. So one thing you will notice is that reaching out for the seatbelt is a little hard because of the, because it's coupe and it has that wide doors. So unlike in some coupes where there's like the arm that extends automatically and gives you the seatbelt, that's not the case in this car. So you will have to reach for it. Sorry in advance if the AC is too loud, but it's just super hot outside. So I kind of like have to leave it on for now. So the first thing you will notice when you start driving this car is that the suspension is a little stiff. It's definitely stiffer than in A6 or A4. And the reason for that is because the car is lower and it's considered kind of like a coupe version of Audi. So that's why it's gotta be a little more sporty. The suspension definitely doesn't do as good of a job as you would want in terms of smoothing out any speed bumps or potholes. So just keep that in mind. The car runs on gas-filled shocks. It's fixed damping. It's not adaptive damping. And it runs on 18-inch wheels. Right now, the tires on this car are Pirelli's 245, 40, size. So the car comes standard with, I think it comes standard with LED headlights, and it has, LED tail lights and xenon headlights. So in terms of road illumination, it's pretty good at night. I drove it at night, and in general, Audis are, they illuminate the road well. So that should not be an issue for you. Steering is electrical power assisted. I usually don't like electrical power assisted steering wheels, but for a car that this is, it's not a sport car, anything, I cannot complain too much. It has some nice weight to it, and it's informative enough. I always understand where the wheels are. Over here, so it's on the back road. Right now we're going like 40 miles an hour. The suspension feels a little smoother. The road is still not perfect. There are still some patches here and there. But because of the speed, I think it became a little more comfortable than at slow speeds over bumps. I feel like I look kind of awkward with the GoPro on my forehead. But it is what it is. I gotta show you guys how this car drives and feels. All right, so like I said earlier, the car gets going at any speed, which is great. I love it. And steering wheel, like I said, is informative. It's pretty good. You can see that reacts to my steer inputs immediately. Like I do it and it keeps going. The faster you go, the more responsive it kind of becomes, which is awesome. Diameter wise, the steering wheel I think is the right size. It's not too thick, it's not too thin, and it feels good in your hands. The seats are adjustable in multiple ways, so anybody should find a good sitting position for themselves. In terms of spaciousness, you can put passengers back there behind yourself if you're not a tall person, but in order for them to feel comfortable, they would have to be kids, for longer distances. For short to medium distances, you can put adults in there, but only two, maybe one. This car is mostly like, I think, considered 2 or 2+2 as they call it. Among negatives, I also want to call that this A-pillar is kind of wide when turning left. This kind of like impedes visibility a little and makes it a little harder, but after driving this car for a while, you can like get used to it and you stop noticing it. The car has blind spot monitors, which is a useful safety feature nowadays. And like Elena said earlier in the video too, the roof is a little, it's a sloped roof because of the design. And if you're a taller person, you can feel a little cramped in here. The seats do go low, pretty low, so that will give you some headspace. But if you are looking for, much headspace, then you should probably consider A6. Okay, so first of all, let's start by measuring the noise level in the cabin, guys. So I'm gonna use this app for measuring the noise level, and I'm gonna turn the AC off for a second. This all, like, it's 100 degrees outside, so it's really uncomfortable right now turning the AC off. But I'm doing this all for you guys, all the sacrifices kinda, so that you could have a full picture, full understanding of whether this car is a quiet car. And this app has pretty good reviews, it's pretty accurate. Alright, so I'm gonna shut off for now. Noise level stays around 62, 65. Sometimes it goes up to 69. We are going, again, we are on 18-inch rims, about 40 miles an hour, and the tires are Pirellis. I checked the noise level on the highway earlier. I forgot to capture the camera. So the noise level on highway was about 5 to 7 decibels higher than in the city. So at 65, 70, it was about 70, 75 decibels. It's relatively quiet. I do feel some turbo lag occasionally, especially, you know, when you come to the stoplight and then you step on it, there is some turbo lag. I don't know, it might be because of the, you know, owner's driving style. Maybe that's an adaptation issue. At times I don't feel any turbo lag. At different times there is some turbo lag. We are going 55 on a highway ramp. Steering wheel gets a little heavier, but the car remains flat, and I love it. So let's see if merging onto the highway is an issue at all. In sport, the transmission, but I floored it and we got going. So let's see what 60 to 90 time would be. 60 miles an hour, transmission in sport, and I'm flooring it. Ooh, there was some nice downshift. Okay, that was 90. And according to Draghi, 60 to 90 took 8.57 seconds. Not bad. And it's a very hot day. Keep in mind that for turbocharged engine, heat is the worst enemy. Oh, I think there's a race happening. Look at this Volkswagen Passat in front of me, passing me like a bullet. Let these cars behind us pass, and then we're gonna see how fast we can get to 60 from 0. Okay. .77, 1/8 of a mile in 10:17. Okay, that was not the best result, 7.7. I think this car can do a little better. So let's see how fast it will reach from 0 to 60 if I shift gears manually. So that's what we're gonna do next. Let's go. Okay, 8 seconds this time. So looks like on a hot day like this, 7.7 and 8 is pretty much what this car is capable of. When you get going from a complete standstill, you definitely feel more of the turbo lag. Again, like, you know, I did not expect this car to be like super fast or be fast as a V6 car would be, but for a 4-cylinder, it's pretty good. 0 to 60 is acceptable, you know, it's less than 8 seconds, and 60 to 90 is fast. In terms of acceleration, I would say it has a decent acceleration and a decent boost. For spiritual driving, sport or manual, putting the transmission in sport or manual is definitely the way to go. In comfort, it's just smooth and comfort oriented. So I was averaging 23, and I'm pushing this car just to show you how it accelerates. So it's pretty close to what manufacturers claims actually. Yeah, there was some turbo lag right there. So final thoughts here, guys, is that, like I said earlier, it's a pretty enjoyable car. And if you're looking for more prestigious car that is fun to drive, I will buy this car. I hope you guys liked this video. I hope it was informative. And let me know if you have any questions, or let me know if I missed any details in the comment section down below. If you like the content, I hope you will consider subscribing, liking, and sharing. so that you could see the future episodes, and that really helps with YouTube search algorithm and helps the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next time.